Well, it's a real bloodbath for the media's credibility. Team Biden, the Democrats, and the liberal press all teaming up to take Donald Trump completely out of context over comments the former president made about a bloodbath in the auto industry during his rally in Ohio. So here's what he actually said.
We're going to put a 100% tariff on every single car that comes across the line, and you're not going to be able to sell those cars if I get elected. Now, if I don't get elected, it's going to be a bloodbath for the whole. That's going to be the least of it. It's going to be a bloodbath for the country. That'll be the least of it. But they're not going to sell those cars.
The media leaving out the full context of what Trump was saying, instead pumping out these types of headlines, promoting the misleading bloodbath interpretation, implying that the former president was calling for political violence. Their narrative also finding a place on rival networks.
I mean, what I heard was a continuation of the same rhetoric, the same endorsement of political violence that we've seen from Donald Trump.
He's even predicting a bloodbath. What does that mean? He's going to exact a bloodbath?
It's just bullshit. He knew what he was doing. We're not stupid. Americans aren't stupid.
So he says his bloodbath comment was referring to the auto industry. That's not how it sounded to me.
It's not some meandering off-message comment. This is his message.
A major party candidate is saying, you elect me, there's going to be dictatorship, bloodbath, violence, retribution against my political enemies. That equals what we saw in Italy and Germany and other places.
Not taking it out of context, because the context is his history and his life.
Former President Trump addressing the outrage in a Truth Social post saying this: I was simply referring to imports allowed by crooked Joe Biden, which are killing the automobile industry. Greg, I feel like the challenge for Democrats right now is that they become the boy who cried political violence, and it's only March.
It's amazing, though, but I think we're in a new era now, and it's not like the old days. How quickly this was debunked. It was like catching a mole before it turns cancerous. And I love how the hoax toadies then pivot to, well, it's true in the context of other hoaxes. Like, you know, okay, you mean like the fine people hoax, the drinking bleach hoax, the migrants aren't people hoax. So they rest their hoax on a pile of other hoaxes, which is like, it's almost like saying, well, Peter Pan is real because so is Tinkerbell. And it raises another point of idiocy, which I love. I think it was the person on The View said this is true because his language is among a pattern of inflammatory rhetoric, right? Well, then how do you fall for it every time? If you're aware that this is a pattern, the intelligent response would be, oh, Trump speaks like this all the time. That's how he speaks, right? So actually, when they bring up his past, it disproves their point rather than proving it. Now compare it to the past to see how we've evolved as hoax consumers. You know, when the Fine People hoax was created, everyone fell for it, including the people here at Fox. There was some guy who cried when it happened on TV. Then we started seeing the unedited tape over a period of months. We've talked about it here on The Five. And every time you brought it up, people would say, I heard it with my own ears. I saw it with my own eyes. But they didn't. It had been edited. And then when you showed it to them, it was like this cognitive dissonance just exploded. Their entire basis for truth had been stripped away. And so, but what the result is now, we have learned to suspect all stories without context as lies. It helps that Musk bought X, because if he wasn't running X, this probably would have been considered fact. But the bigger story is the media has no credibility. They're exhausted. None of this stuff works. And the Dems, though, as you can see, will see it as the truth because they still live in their bubble of cognitive bias. It may no longer reach them. They're immune to the truth the way Jesse is immune to world suffering.
Judge, Democrats try to squeeze so much juice out of anything that he says that it becomes something like you just can't. It's been 9 years, since I'm just trying to think. It's been 9 years since the media has been watching this, and they continue to fall into this trap. And I think Greg's right that it's come to a point where people are like, oh, the media, here they go again.
But what stuns me is that they continue to do it. Mm-hmm. They know that what they're selling is not saleable, that the American people are not buying it. The whole idea of that last sound of Pelosi saying, is he going to exact a bloodbath? Nancy, he was president for 4 years. Did you see a bloodbath? And then, you know, he's Hitler. Well, during the 4 years that he was president, did you see him kill any Jews? No. In fact, he set up the embassy in Jerusalem and took it out of Tel Aviv. You know, or that, you know, he's going to exact retribution against his enemies. He had a DOJ for 4 years. What enemy did he exact retribution from? Did he indict? So they are now at the point where they know they're so ridiculous that they're justifying they're taking it out of context. They're almost admitting it. They're saying, we're taking it out of context, but it's okay because it's really in context, because if you listen to what that one said on The View, whatever her name is, that it is in context. Here's the bottom line. Rachel Maddow used a bloodbath hours before Donald Trump did in referring to the new leadership at the RNC.
Can we play that for everyone?
If you have it.
Here he goes. Call for number 4, if you could play that.
But as Politico.com reports tonight on the, quote, bloodbath at the RNC.
As part of the, quote, MAGA drive to take over Maricopa County. And the headline refers to it as an impending bloodbath.
The midterm elections may not be the bloodbath for Democrats that's been predicted.
Joe Biden was just talking the other day about, you know, his concerns about a negative bloodbath.
It's going to be a bloodbath in November.
It would be a bloodbath.
They could see a bloodbath, too. A bloodbath at the ballot box.
The Republican Party will be destroyed. It's going to be a bloodbath.
And there you have it.
Yeah, and that's exactly the point. When the only bloodbaths going on in the world are Ukraine, the Middle East, illegals murdering Americans, fentanyls, missing children coming over the border, and I'll leave it at that.
So one of the things that happened when the White House was asked about getting this out of context, Harold, they didn't apologize, and they said, well, it's true in the broader picture. I also wonder, though, in the time between the headlines and the fundraising emails and the time that X was basically like, obviously this is out of context, the Democrats are raising so much money off of these little things that they have $155 million already in the campaign coffers. So I wonder if it's just worth it for them to go ahead and get something wrong because they get these types of donations.
They probably will continue to do that. It's an age-old political tradition of capitalizing on something your opponent said or didn't say. First, it's good to be back around the table.
Yeah, I was wondering where that was.
I'm taking that out of context.
Couple things. I'm glad the former president came back to clarify that he was talking about the auto workers. When I watched it in real time, I didn't see it in actual time, but I saw it when I played it back. I figured that's what he was talking about, which was the auto workers and his ability to manage the economy better. But I watched the first part of what he said also, and he indicated that he was still willing, and this is just a huge difference of opinion that he and I have. He's willing to, I believe, pardon those whose conduct they've been held accountable for on January 6th. He calls them hostages. I watched Vice President Pence over the weekend say that he could not endorse President Trump. And one of the reasons he cited was that he doesn't believe that those who've been held accountable January 6th are hostages. He compared them to those in Israel. I think there are a number of things if Democrats want to point to differences between President Trump and President Biden that they should. I think these kinds of instances where we take things out of context, Democrat or Republican, in this instance, this is a particularly sensitive one because of the way people think. Some Democrats and some independents and even some Republicans think about President Trump. I don't believe in fairness to him. This is what he was talking about. That being said, this race is going to come down to, we should not kid ourselves. January 6th will be a predicate in this race. And it will be interesting to hear how President Trump addresses this, in addition to how he's addressed it so far. Because the one thing that Democrats, I think, rightly say is that President Trump is willing, he is said willing to pardon many, if not all of those who have been found guilty or liable for their conduct on January 6th.
One of the things this morning I had to do a double take is Hillary Clinton weighed in this morning, somewhere in the 10 o'clock hour of newsroom, after this has already been debunked. Now, here it is right here. This was this morning, a bloodbath. What would you say if you saw this in another country? I thought, ma'am, have you missed the past 18 hours of debunking this thing?
Yeah, usually when Hillary's State Department leaves a country, there's a bloodbath. This hoax, I believe, was quicker than the Jussie Smollett hoax. This was like 3 hours that it was popped. And the American people like popping hoaxes now. It's fun. It's a game. And people Enjoy the challenge, because it used to be a challenge. It used to take years to investigate and figure out Russia or the laptop. And now, instantaneously, we can point it out. And there's something kind of rejuvenating about that, to see behind the curtain, to see how the sausage is made. And it's not being made very well. This tells me that Biden is losing. And he knows he's losing. And he has to rely on cheap tactics like that. This is not how confident campaigns operate. Confident campaigns go out and hold rallies and persuade voters about why I'm winning and why I deserve a second term. This is like going after someone's knees in a football game. You don't do this. Everybody knows it's illegal. And he got caught in about 5 seconds because he doesn't have anything else to offer. They keep playing the same magic trick, Stana, over and over again. Oh, there's a quarter behind your ear. Oh, there's a quarter. There's no quarter. We know how the trick works. Why do they keep doing this? Is because they don't have anything else. They have hoaxes and lawsuits. And now, what is everybody talking about? They're talking about China snaking around Biden's import tariffs, going through Mexico to dump cheap cars into the country. And Joe Biden doesn't have a clue about it. Right. And Donald Trump's all over it. And we're talking about how the media is crooked and you can't trust anything they say. That's where everybody is right now. And like what the hoax dead enders that Greg's talking about, they're just digging a deeper grave.
Indeed.
Click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You won't get it anywhere else.